I was driving on the highway when I saw a car ahead with its hazard lights on, going about 30 mph below the speed limit. As I got closer, I saw the driver was an elderly woman who had a massive old-school paper map, completely unfolded and spread across her steering wheel and the entire dashboard. She was trying to navigate by peering through a small gap between the map and the top of the windshield, effectively driving blind. My dad is a state trooper. He once pulled over a guy for swerving all over the road. When he got to the window, he saw the driver had a live parrot on his shoulder. The driver's excuse for the erratic driving was, "Sorry, officer, he's learning to drive stick and he keeps grinding the gears." The man was dead serious and pointed a wing at the gear shift. I was working the service desk at a large car dealership when a woman came in, clearly upset. She slammed her keys on the counter and announced that she wanted to trade in the car she had bought just 3 months prior because the air conditioning was broken. It was the middle of December and freezing outside, so I was a bit confused. I asked her to describe the problem. She said, "It only blows cold air. I turn it on and it's just freezing. I paid for a premium climate control package and it's useless." I gently tried to explain that the AC is for cooling, and she probably needed to turn on the heat. She rolled her eyes at me and said, "Don't be ridiculous. The AC button is for air control. It's supposed to control the air to be whatever temperature I want." It took a senior mechanic coming out and giving her a 15-minute tutorial on the difference between the red and blue sides of the temperature dial and the function of the AC versus the heater core. She left in a huff, still seemingly convinced we were hiding the hot air feature from her. I used to work at an auto parts store. A guy came in asking for a left side headlight. I grabbed one for his model and brought it to the counter. He looked at it and said, "No, I need the one for the driver's side." I explained that in the box you can just flip it to fit either side. He got angry, accused me of trying to rip him off, and insisted that there had to be a specific left and right version. He stormed out, saying he'd order the correct one online. I was in the car with my friend when we saw a minivan at a four-way intersection. The driver seemed confused. A police car pulled up behind them, and the driver of the minivan panicked. They lurched forward, then backward, then forward again, before finally just driving straight onto the lawn of the corner house, where they came to a stop next to a bird bath. They just sat there, defeated, as the officer walked up to their window. A woman brought her car into the shop where I work, complaining of a loud, rhythmic thumping sound that got faster as she accelerated. She was convinced her engine was about to explode. My boss took it for a test drive and heard it immediately. He pulled over, got out, and removed a playing card that her kid had attached to the spokes of her wheel with a clothespin, just like on a bicycle. I was driving behind a pickup truck on a country road. The guy in the passenger seat was holding a large tree branch, sticking it out the window like a jouster's lance. He was trying to hit mailboxes as they drove past. He missed about 5 in a row, but then he connected with a big metal one. The branch didn't break. It just whipped back and shattered the truck's passenger side window. A man came into our dealership furious because the cruise control in his brand new luxury sedan was broken. He said he'd set it to 70 mph on the highway, but the car kept slowing down on its own. A technician went on a drive with him. The man set the cruise control and then immediately tailgated the car in front of him. The technician had to explain that he had purchased the model with adaptive cruise control, which automatically maintains a safe following distance. I watched a woman in a grocery store parking lot load all her bags into her trunk. She then returned her shopping cart to the corral, which was admirable. However, she had left her car keys in the cart's child seat. She walked all the way back to her car, realized her mistake, and then stood there, pressing the unlock button on her empty palm, genuinely confused as to why her car wouldn't open. My brother is a long-haul trucker. He saw a car on the interstate with a small inflatable kiddie pool on the roof. It wasn't tied down, it was just filled with water, and the weight of the water was the only thing holding it in place. Every time the car hit a bump or changed lanes, a huge wave of water would slosh over the side onto the cars behind it. I sold a used car to a young guy who came back the next day demanding a refund. He said the car was unsafe because the windows fog up on the inside when it rains. I had to spend 20 minutes showing him how the defroster button worked. He thought it was just for the outside of the glass and had never used it in his life. I was in the parking lot of a home improvement store and watched a couple try to load a 12-foot-long piece of PVC pipe into a tiny Toyota Prius. Their first attempt was to try and slide it in diagonally from the passenger window to the rear driver's side, which obviously didn't work. Then the man had a brilliant idea. He told his wife to get in the driver's seat and roll down her window. He then rolled down the front passenger window. He proceeded to thread the entire 12-foot pipe through the car, in one window and out the other, so it was sticking out about 4 feet on either side like a giant jousting stick. He then got in the passenger seat and they drove off, completely oblivious to the fact that every time they made a turn, they were swinging a massive pipe that was a danger to every car, pedestrian and light pole in the entire parking lot. I was waiting at a drawbridge that was up to let a boat pass. The guy in the car in front of me was getting visibly impatient. He started honking. When the bridge was almost fully down, but the safety gates were still lowered, he decided he'd had enough. He floored it, smashed right through the wooden safety gate, and drove off with a piece of it stuck to his grill. A woman called our service centre to complain that her car's GPS was sexist. When we asked her to elaborate, she said that the voice was a woman's, and she refuses to ask for directions. It turned out she had the avoid highways setting turned on and was angry that it was taking her on all these back roads instead of the main interstate. A driver in a massive SUV was trying to get into a compact-only parking spot. He tried to go in forward, then backward for about 5 minutes. He finally got out, looked at the spot, looked at his car, and then proceeded to let about half the air out of all 4 of his tyres, thinking it would lower the car enough to fit. It didn't work. I was behind a car that was weaving back and forth like the driver was drunk. I called the non-emergency line to report them. As I was on the phone, the car pulled into a McDonald's drive-thru. I saw the driver's problem. They had dropped a French fry between the seat and the centre console, and were trying to retrieve it with a pair of tongs while still driving. My aunt thought her car's oil light was just a suggestion. She drove her car for what we later found out was over 20,000 miles after the light came on. The engine finally seized up on the highway. When she told the tow truck driver, he asked to see the dipstick. It came out bone dry and slightly smoking. She said, "See, it used up all the oil, it's hungry." I watched a guy on a motorcycle pull up to a red light. He was trying to look cool and was revving his engine. He had a passenger on the back. He revved it a little too hard, popped the clutch by accident, and the bike shot out from under both of them. The bike ghost rode into the intersection and fell over while he and his passenger were left sitting on the pavement. A man tried to go through an automated car wash with his windows down, not just cracked, but all the way down. When the soap and brushes started, he just sat there and took it. He drove out the other side completely drenched, with his car full of soapy water, looking straight ahead as if it was the most normal thing in the world. I was at a gas station where a woman was trying to use her credit card at the pump. It kept getting rejected. She was getting more and more frustrated until she finally started screaming at the machine. Then she took her credit card and started trying to jam it into the receipt paper slot, convinced the card reader was just the wrong shape. A driver was trying to make a left turn at a busy intersection with no arrow. They were timid and missed about 5 perfectly good opportunities. Finally, they just closed their eyes, gunned it, and drove straight into the side of a city bus that was going through the intersection. They got out and yelled at the bus driver, "You were supposed to see me coming." My friend works for the DMV. A man failed his driving test because when the instructor told him to merge onto the highway, he came to a complete stop at the end of the on-ramp. He then waited for a full minute until there were no cars visible in either direction before accelerating onto the completely empty highway. I saw a car with a canoe strapped to the roof. The problem was they had strapped it on upside down and backward, so it was acting like a giant air scoop. As the car picked up speed on the freeway, the canoe caught so much wind that it ripped the entire roof rack off the car, sending the canoe flying into the air. A woman came into our tyre shop and asked us to check her tyre pressure. She said her car told her to. We checked, and all 4 tyres were at 15 psi instead of the recommended 35. We filled them up for her. She came back a week later with the same problem. It turns out she thought you were supposed to let a little air out every day to keep them from getting too full. My sister borrowed my car for a road trip and called me in a complete panic from a gas station 3 states away. She was crying, saying the car was broken and she was stranded. I asked what was wrong. She said, "I'm trying to put gas in it, but the little door won't open. I've been pulling on it for 20 minutes and I think I broke my nail." I was confused because there's a lever inside the car to release the fuel door. I asked her if she had pulled the lever with the little gas pump icon on it. There was a long pause and then she said, "The what?" I had to walk her step by step over the phone to find the fuel door release lever located on the floor next to her seat. She had been driving for 6 years and had no idea that was a feature in most cars. She thought you just had to pry them open with your fingers. I was behind a car that was stopped at a green light. I honked, and the driver, a teenage girl, waved me around. As I passed, I saw she was in the middle of taking a selfie, making a duck face, and was waiting for the light to turn red again because the lighting was better. A guy in a parking garage was convinced he could fit his lifted F350 into a spot with a low clearance sign that clearly said max height 6'6". His truck was at least 7 feet tall. He drove forward slowly, and the top of his cab scraped the concrete beam. He then backed up, got a running start, and slammed into it, crunching the top of his truck like a tin can. My mum was a 911 dispatcher. She got a call from a man who was whispering that he was trapped in his car and couldn't get out. He said he was in a parking lot and was surrounded. My mum tried to get more information, thinking it was a carjacking. After several minutes of panicked whispering, he revealed that he had parked next to a car with a small dog in it, and he was afraid to open his door because it might bark at him. I watched a driver completely miss the entrance to a drive-through. Instead of circling around, they decided to just drive over the curb and through the restaurant's decorative garden bed to cut into the line. They got high-centered on a large landscape rock and had to be towed out, all while the people in the drive-through line just stared. I witnessed a traffic stop that devolved into pure absurdity. A woman was pulled over, and when the officer asked for her license and registration, she handed him her library card and a receipt from a grocery store. The officer, confused, asked again for her driver's license. She replied with complete sincerity, "Oh, I don't have one of those. I'm what you call an intuitive driver. I don't need a license because I can feel the road and sense what other cars are going to do. It's a gift." The officer just stared at her for a solid 10 seconds before sighing and telling her to step out of the vehicle. She then tried to argue that arresting her was a form of discrimination against people with vehicular ESP. A man was pulled over for driving with a suspended license. His argument to the judge was that he wasn't technically driving. He claimed that since his wife was in the passenger seat with a valid license, she was the supervising driver, and he was merely operating the vehicle's controls under her supervision, like a student driver. The judge was not amused